And recording.
You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
I'm Nathan.
We got another very special episode. We have Hellraiser, 1987. Came out on September 18th, 1987. That was the U.S. release. Directed by Clive Barker, who's more of a notable author, but like kind of had a period of like 7 years where he got to make films.
Yeah.
Did things like Nightbreed, which is a weird movie. But
I kind of like that one, but yeah, it's a weird one.
But he's mostly notable as an author. Cinematographer Robin Vidgen, who they worked on like a lot. They worked with like on Nightbreed as well, and a bunch of other Hellraiser stuff. They kind of do a lot of TV nowadays. Written by Clive Barker, based on the book called The Hellbound Heart, which is sort of why Hellraiser 2 is called Hellraiser 2 Hellbound, even though it doesn't really have any. It's just a new thing. Cast largely nobody you know. Andrew Robinson, Claire Higgins, Ashley Lawrence, but they're all good. But like there's not really. They're all kind of like TV actors or British actors. So.
It's like, it's Garrick from Deep Space Nine.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, he's the Cardassian Taylor.
Okay.
He was the spy, but it was all funny because it was kind of based on a John le Carre spy type thing.
Yeah.
And one of his famous books was The Tailor of Panama. It was this guy who was like, I'm just a tailor, but really I'm a spy for the British or whatever. And that was Garrick. He did a good job in that role. It was funny to see him here, like a lot younger.
I mean, that was one of the things that Star Trek did really well is they just hired like older, good actors that like weren't necessarily like, they didn't really have sex appeal, but like once you throw makeup on them, it doesn't really matter what they look like. It's just as long as they're a good actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the same with like the guy who played Odo, he was like pretty old and just kind of a stage actor and kind of looked weird, but like throw some makeup on him and give him like he's a changeling or whatever he was. I can't remember what they called them.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, he was Elim Garrick, Cardassian Taylor, and he was a former operative of the Obsidian Order, which was the CIA or whatever. Oh, and he auditioned for the role of Odo.
Oh, okay.
Wanted him for that too, but that went to Rene Auberjonois. So he was going to be the guy for that. I remember he died recently. Not Auberjonois did. Not
Yeah, the guy who played Odo died recently.
Yeah.
So do you have any history with Hellraiser, Nathan?
This is usually there's a lot of reasons in this movie why I don't like horror movies and I don't watch them. Because this is one of those things that's just kind of gross. A lot of it. Some of it's interesting. Because I remember I watched this in 1990, I think. And I was like, well, this is just kind of gross and like low budget. But it's like, well, the story's kind of compelling in a way.
Yeah.
And
well, it's like the story is not really a horror. It's not your typical formula for a horror movie.
No, it's
because really, like all the advertising is set up like Pinhead, the villain, he's coming to get you, and like really, Pinhead and the Cenobites aren't really the bad guys. They're just kind of like a weird vector.
They're just what I call interdimensional sex Germans. That's what they are. Pain and pleasure are the same thing. It's like, okay, someone's been spending too much time at S&M Club or whatever. But
that'd probably be Clive Barker. So
yeah. So but it was. I remember watching it once and like, I'm gonna watch that again. And I did. And I was like, oh yeah, this is probably the only movie like this that I really would say I kind of liked. Mainly just because of the weirdness of it.
Yeah.
It was imaginative, but not at the same time. It was one of those movies that was almost a lot of things, but really was nothing. but the Cenobites were cool just because it's like, oh, it's just a world of pain and hell that they're from.
Oh, and an iconic character design too. So
yeah, very strange looking. Like you got the chattering teeth guy, who was really the scariest one. This guy just shows up to click, 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 like, you know, he doesn't have any eyes or a face. And then the lady just, you know, spoke through a hole in her throat that was kept open by some halo contraption. And
yeah, it was very, very much looked like a vagina.
yeah, it was all. And then you had, of course, Pinhead, who wasn't called that, I guess, until later on other movies like this.
Yeah.
But the way that guy delivered dialogue was just so crazy. We have so many things to show you, you know, it's just like an odd.
Yeah, you just get
he's not human, so
yeah, just throw some S&M gear on a British stage actor. Have at it. This is Shakespeare. No problem.
I got it. I got it, Gov. They'll make it scary. I mean, and the fact that then you realize a movie was made for like $900,000.
Yeah.
Which is like, this is quite a movie, even in 80s bucks for that kind of money, considering it wasn't like all the money, you know, you had to make a whole movie and you had to make these special effects.
Yeah.
Some of them are really special, but almost charming in a way.
Well, I mean, you could tell they wanted to do more, but they were very limited, but they did well with what they had. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw this like a few years ago, and I talked about it, and I was just like saying how like it's not what I thought it was, because I thought it was just going to be like some kind of Freddy Krueger movie, and it's not really that.
No,
I mean, like, yeah, all the advertising gives it that vibe, and the sequels were pretty much that.
Yeah,
like it seemed like they didn't recognize what made this special for the sequels, and then just like, let's just make horror movies and Pinhead's the villain. Although I kind of remember that, I think it's the fourth one, they go to space because, you know, that's what you do in horror movie series. Yes. And I remember that one being kind of good. Although I had no expectations and I just thought it was visually interesting. I'm pretty sure if I watched it now, it'd just be pure trash, but I remember liking it better than some.
Again, it's one that I like scenes in.
Yeah.
Because I remember in the beginning of that, they have like an obvious robot like working the puzzle box to open it because they wanted to study, you know, like this other dimension, and they were. It's like, oh, we're scientists and we're going to study this on a spaceship, and of course, then it just descends into a chainsaw massacre. Or something. Like, okay, yeah, great. Again, cool idea, no follow through.
But anyways, we have Act 1. We have the credits, and they kind of roll into like the puzzle box, and we're in like Asia or something. We got a white guy with dirty fingernails. He puts a couple of stacks of cash on the table and takes the puzzle box, and then the seller says something like, "It's yours. It always was."
Yeah. What could go wrong?
The white dude, Frank, sits in a square of candles and he starts solving the puzzle box. He solves it, and then like hooks grab his face, and he screams, and then we cut away.
Yep. He gets fish hooked to death or something by opening this puzzle box.
Yeah. Well, we'll see it later on. They kind of roll that back. I think the story does it better where they kind of like explain like who Frank is and what his motivations are up front. Here they kind of like drip feed it throughout.
Okay.
So like, yeah, the book's pretty good, but I mean, it pretty much is this movie, but it's just kind of structured a bit differently. Also in there, like I don't think Pinhead is described the way he is here. Like, I don't think, you know, they don't call him Pinhead. It's just kind of like the main Cenobite that talks. Although they are described as being androgynous. So, because I know some people were mad about the new Hellraiser because they made Pinhead a woman. And it's like, well, if you go to the book, that's actually more correct.
Yeah, these are demons and weird hell things. It's like, yeah, they can. Doesn't do any good to gender them because they can do whatever they want. And
So we cut to like the house is in disrepair. We don't know how much time has passed, but I don't know, presumably years or something. I don't know.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
The house is like looks like a crack house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the kitchen's full of maggots. It's like there's so much gross in this movie that I kind of forgot, and then I'm watching it again. I'm like, well, this is disgusting.
Well, also they go back to the room, and the room is just full of body parts and chains and swinging wood and body parts chained to the wood that's spinning around. The Cenobites are like rummaging through like the flesh and loosely assemble a face from the parts that are on the floor. And then Pinhead resets the puzzle box, and then like this whole nightmare just disappears, and the room's fine.
Yeah.
Then we have Julia and Larry show up, and they're trying to get in the door. The house is like Larry is Frank's brother, and like this is their mother's house, and Larry wanted to sell it, but Frank has to use it as like a hideout, because I think in the book like Frank is like a drug dealer. Here he's just kind of a seedy guy.
Yeah.
Because like they have rooms and everything, but he just like has like a bedroll on the floor, and that's his room. Yeah, and then Larry sees like all the bug infestation in the kitchen. Oh yeah, and this is where Julie finds like Frank's weird just bedroll on the floor somewhere, and then she starts going through like his pictures where it's like him having like sex with all over the world and stuff like that, and she can see like she's like fascinated by it. Then Kirsty, the daughter, like shows up, or she calls, and then he picks up the phone. It's like, hey, somehow they had a working phone in this house.
Yeah, and she had the number.
Although, I mean, I guess that could imply that she knew Frank, but because there's a lot of weird stuff between her and Frank at the end, but that seems to come out of nowhere. But
yeah,
yeah. Julia goes through like Frank's things, and she's like enticed by because he's adventurous. He goes over the world. He has these weird like tchotchkes or whatever. He's like a drug dealing Indiana Jones sex pervert.
Yeah. I don't exactly understand his role in the world other than he's just a creature of lust and torment.
But Julie and Larry decide they're going to take the place. Like, I don't know why. I guess it's just a free house. Why not?
Yeah, it seems to be like he was rebuilding something.
Yeah.
Some kind of business or something.
And also it seems like Kirsty's going to college in this town, which, this was like shot in the UK, but I have no idea what town this is supposed to be. Because there's a lot of people using American accents, but it's like mostly British actors.
Yeah, it seems like New York area.
Yeah.
Is the vibe I got. They don't really say, but it kind of looks like they try to do some back scenes where it's like it's a large American city.
Yeah.
Where every third person is British. It's Brimerica.
We cut to Kirsty's like walking about the dock. This is where they show off like, hey, this is how big the city is. We dissolve to like she makes it to the new house, and then she sees like the weird occult stuff that they left outside. The movers make some joke about like Julia being her mom or something like that, and she's like, it's my stepmom. So it's like, oh, okay, now we immediately know she's the bad person.
Yeah, we're introduced to the villain. The real villain of the movie is go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I think this watch, I think I've come to appreciate the Julia character more because she's like the most interesting character because everything happens because of her essentially. So,
yeah, like I said, she's the real villain here.
Julia has a flashback where she's like attracted to Frank. He's like standing in the doorway, like it's raining outside, and he's like soaked in a leather jacket.
Yeah.
This like it like intercuts back and forth. Like this were like her affair with Frank. But we cut back and Kirsty's talking to Julia. And Julia's like drawn away, but she like Kirsty's like calling up to her, and then she's just like drawn away without responding. She just kind of floats away, and Kirsty's like, "What's that about?" Then we go back to flashback, and then Frank and Julia are having sex on top of her wedding dress.
Yeah, and it's really awkward, weird 80s sex. I think it's supposed to be disconcerting, though. It was shot in a weird way.
Well, I mean,
she's like growling like an animal sometimes, and then he's doing like crazy, like I'm basically gonna land on you. Like,
yeah, I think they're like approaching S&M without doing it like full on hardcore. Because there's that stuff where they're like almost biting each other's fingers, and it's like it's not really different from normal sex in Hollywood movies. So. But okay. Yeah. But we did see him get, there was violence in the midst, so that is something different. It's like, this is weird, that.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, and it is weird. It becomes very uncomfortable to watch. It's like, ugh.
Larry cuts his hand on a loose nail and like drips blood. He's like looking for Julia because he has a fear of blood, and so he needs her to take care of it, because if he sees his blood like leaving his body, he'll like pass out.
Yeah.
So this kind of makes like, oh, Larry's kind of a dweeb. I mean, we already kind of knew that, but
yeah. Larry's not cool like his brother.
No.
Like Brother Boner is the cool
brother. Julia and Larry leave. Like so Larry, they go in that room that used to be a nightmare, is now normal, or just kind of covered in cobwebs and rats for some reason. He drops some blood on the floor, and then the blood like seeps through the floor, and there's just like some loose body parts kind of like in between the rafters or something, and they absorb the blood, and Frank starts to like reanimate. The floorboard starts shaking, and there's like a collection of body parts that just like assemble back together. And then they start to grow flesh over bone, and it's very effective and super weird.
Yeah, it looks like Frank is coming back as something made of pus. Like it's a really weird kind of, and it's reverse camera.
Yeah.
Because it was all shot backwards, because actually the stuff was being taken apart. But yeah, it's like, well, that's gross.
And then we cut to a dinner party with the family and friends. Julia's preoccupied with her fantasy with Frank. Kirsty's like flirting with her boyfriend at the table. Julia excuses herself, and then Larry seems confused and has like somewhat of a bruised ego, where he's like, "Why doesn't my wife want to hang out with me?" It's like, well, it's not a good reason, Larry.
Well, let's talk, Larry.
You're a bad fuck, Larry.
Yeah. You're not just grinding into her like a horse, It's like, that's really what this woman needs, apparently. Again, that's one of those things. It's like men's ideas of sex that women like. It's like it really comes through sometimes in the 80s. Like, who wouldn't be aroused by that? It's like, well, almost any woman I could think of would not want to just do a pile driver thing, like a wrestling move. Or maybe they would. I mean, some people are into that too. It takes all kinds. But
Julia goes back to the puzzle box room, where she hears whispers and a heartbeat, and then Frank's withered body like grabs her and tells her not to look at him. And then here he explains that Larry's blood brought Frank back from hell or whatever.
Yeah, or something, or etc. This is where the story gets like really vague and like, why is this happening? Okay, cool.
I think something that they don't necessarily get across is that like they have these things where it's like, oh, you solve the puzzle box and then you're just ripped asunder by these hooks and now you're dead. But it's like they don't get across that like, no, you're not dead. It's just a new form of existence.
And why would the puzzle box bring that to everyone? Like, because they all show up, you finish the puzzle box, and they're like, let us show you pain and pleasure. He's like, no, I need help with this investment thing. You guys are supposed to be good with math. What? and then they'd have to sit down and like talk to you even though they hated it. It's like, yeah, why does it always have to be torture and death? Why can't it be like, I need someone to cut the lawn, and you're skinhead the next day, looking miserable. And
I'm just imagining The Office, but with Hellraiser. It's just like,
yeah, it's like we got to get our quarterly numbers up. You guys are here to help, and lose the weird shit like outfits, just like wear like khakis and a tie. I guess the stuff that's like surgically screwed into your body or whatever we have to deal with, but that's why we summoned you. Like, this is the real hell. I don't know why it always has to be something terrible. Like draw a pentagram on the floor and like sacrifice a goat and all the blood gets sucked into a void and he's like, you have summoned me. It's like, yeah, I need help with my taxes. We're just, and then that's it. Then it's back to hell. The humans are becoming too mundane. They don't want to have weird sex anymore. They want us to accomplish, arbitrage functions.
We need to solve this tort reform.
This is human hell, the real human hell.
Boredom, the real hell. I mean, essentially, that's what sent Frank on his way to the puzzle box, is that he was just bored with life and needed something new.
Yeah. That's where I'd find a hobby. It's like, man, I just had so much sex all over the world. I can't think of what else to do. How about a box that opens a doorway to hell? Yeah, that sounds like a good time. It's like, no, how about like building wooden ships or something? Like, how about no portals to hell? I mean, the way you've lived, there's going to be one opening in your life eventually anyway, but let's not bring that, make that happen sooner.
Or build your own puzzle box. That's got to be ungodly complicated.
Yeah. Oh, I've watched videos on YouTube about people that make stuff like that. It is crazy.
I bothered to look up, because here it's called the lament configuration. Actually, I don't think it has a name in this movie. No. In the book, it's called like the Limoges configuration, and then later on it gets the title of the lament configuration. And then I just typed that into Amazon to see what I get, and like it's like, okay, it looks like the puzzle box, but all it is like, where you pull it out and it kind of becomes a diamond rather than a square. Like, yeah, that's all it does, and it's like $60. It's like, well, that's kind of lame.
Yeah, no, I want to like rub this thing in the center and have it become like triangular. And you're not really solving a puzzle box; you're just moving it into a new configuration. It's like you're having to like put a stone on or put a thing on the end of a staff and a light shines through and it's like the answers are revealed. No, not Indiana Jones. It's more like, oh, you just got to rub this thing and move it around. And these, like I said, interdimensional sex Germans will then appear and off to the rodeo.
Let's see here. So Frank's grabbing onto Julia, and he's like, he demands help by way of more human blood. We have Julia kind of walks out of the room, and she has eyes like Christy would be a good sacrifice, but then Steve shows up and her boyfriend, and they leave. So I have that being the end of Act 1. It's like Frank needs human blood. That's our plot point.
And at any point she could be like, get the hell out of here. Are you crazy?
Well, right now he's very weak. She could just take an axe to him, or that hammer that she constantly uses.
Yeah.
But, the enticement,'s too much. What is this blood corpse going to bring to my future?
Has it reformed yet? What do you mean? It. The only reason I'm doing all this. Because it is the most amazing one out of billions of people. You have it.
So Act 2.
Don't look at it.
It's not ready.
It's not ready.
There's no nerve endings working yet.
Will you be circumcised? Is the new? She should have just like asked those questions. Like, well, at least this is making sense and like her mind. It's like, yeah, this is what she wants.
The audience getting specific answers. Now we know.
I want lots of exposition in my Hellraiser. So, Pinhead, what are you getting out of all this? Just if pain and pleasure mean the same thing to you, it's like how many times can you do the same thing? Well, I don't know. Eternity is an open-ended concept. It's like, yeah, but you're just ripping people apart the same way.
And there's budget limitations and pleasure and pain.
This broad hair's got her neck thing going on, your girlfriend, and you got the fat guy and then teeth. It's like, let's go come up with something new.
In Act 2, Steve and Kirsty walk about. They make out in some like subway or something. I don't know.
Yeah, a subway or an early storage facility. I don't know which.
Yeah. Everything looks dirty in this movie. So
yeah. It's a gritty movie for sure.
Especially if it was shot in like 80s London. I'm sure every crevice was just filled with dirt. So.
Oh yeah.
Then we have Julia and Larry are in bed. Larry is talking in his sleep, and then Julia's just dreaming about Frank again. She goes to Frank, and then she tells him that she'll get him some human blood. And then we cut to Kirsty has a nightmare with like a baby screaming over like a feathered covered bleeding mass of something.
Yeah.
But Steve wakes her from the nightmare. But I think he also had a nightmare, but I don't know if it was like they had a shared nightmare or if they just had parallel nightmares. We cut to the next day. Julia's getting dressed up and goes to a bar drinking alone. She's like waiting for some guy to pick her up. And
very 80s looking bar.
Yeah.
White and neon and weird music playing.
A guy finds her, so she takes him back to the house, and then she's hesitant with like doing foreplay with him. Well, I'm not sure if she's hesitant of doing foreplay with him or if she's hesitant about like bringing him to his doom. I don't really know which. But she brings him upstairs.
Come to my crappy home where we will do it. All these guys should be like, hey, am I going to be killed? Wait a minute. This house looks like shit. You're way too hot to be this standoffish.
That's why if there's ever like, well, I mean, I know there's been a few, but if there's ever like like the hottest looking woman serial killer, she could kill as many men as she wanted to.
Oh yeah.
No one would ever be cautioned at any moment. How far am I willing to go? It's like, all right, just one more step. It's okay. That's not too weird. That's just one night. It's not like we're dating.
Oh yeah, most guys would just follow it right to the. Oh.
But she takes the guy upstairs and the dirty empty room and locks the door, and the guy starts undressing. But the guy wants to go to the bathroom, so he goes to open the door, but it's locked. And then she beats him to death with a hammer. She gets covered in blood. She leaves as Frank like grabs the guy's bleeding corpse. Julia goes back in later on to see the corpse that's like withered and empty, because like Frank has like drawn all its life essence or blood out of it. It's like, vampire-esque without being vampire. Later on, we just see him. He just like sticks his hands through the skin, and then they cut away because it's like that's too much of a special effect. This is a very inexpensive movie, so you can't do too much.
Yeah, it's more implied. A lot of shadows and darkness.
Yeah. But so yeah, Frank is further reanimated, so now he can like stand and stuff. But he says every drop I get puts more flesh on my bones.
Yeah, he seems to be need a lot more for a lot less return as the movie goes on.
Yeah.
He still ends up looking like one of the like Attack on Titan giants throughout the most of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he gets to an end point, but it's but he takes a shortcut. So
Yeah, he kind of goes the Lecter route.
Frank wants to touch Julia, but Larry like getting home like interrupts them, and then Julia like takes the corpse away. It's like, you know, she can just carry it away now because it's so depleted of life. It's like just like she could pick it up and they'll just haul it around like it's nothing.
I just thought that was a talent like British women were born with, like disposing of corpses.
Larry's like making his way to the house, and then Julia like gets into a bathroom and tries to avoid Larry. But Julia goes back to Frank, and here he explains that he needs like more bodies to heal, and that he needs to run away from the Cenobites. So I think that's where they. I think this is the first time they mentioned the Cenobites. It's like a thing I've always known that's what they're called, but like, you know, we get an explanation, but there's nobody going like, wait, what? Who's a Cenobite? What's a Cenobite? What's it do? It's just kind of like, no, they're after me. It's like, oh, okay, all right, whatever. I don't know. They'll explain themselves later on. So
Yeah.
Kirsty's like working at a pet store, I think, and then like some intense homeless man that she's seen for a second time comes in, and he's like starts eating crickets.
Yeah.
And then
like, yeah, let's just be gross.
Yeah, and then she shoos him out of the store. Julia brings home another man for Frank to kill or to eat. Yeah, at this point Frank kind of looks like Freddy Krueger now, and he's wearing clothes. He's smoking a cigarette, and he like cherishes the taste because he's like his like nerves are growing back, so now he can taste again. Here Frank shows out the puzzle box. He says the box opens doors to pleasure and heaven or hell. I didn't care which. So, which is more explained in the book, where it's basically just like Frank was bored with sex, and so he's like, nah, I need the next level. So that's why he sought out this mysterious box that could, you know, lend him dimensional sex powers.
Yeah. Interdimensional sex.
So here Frank has a flashback of his like sex torture experience, where it's just like flesh and hooks and blood. Here we see the Cenobites clearly. So yeah, we get like all the shots of all the, you know, like Pinhead and, you know, like Throat Lady and Fat Guy and teeth.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do the other ones have names, or does just Pinhead eventually get a name?
He's the only one I know.
Okay.
I don't, because they go through different, like, it depends, because there's like literature, comic books, and other things about them. They're also known as the Order of the Gash.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like, well, that could have multiple meanings.
We have Larry watching boxing, and then Julia's she's just bored, and Larry's like all into it. It's like, yeah, come on. He's like shadow boxing, and but then Larry hears like Frank like beating on the walls upstairs, and Larry goes to go look. But like Julia like doesn't want, for some reason Julia doesn't love Larry. She loves Frank, but she doesn't want Larry to die. So she seduces Larry away to try to keep him away from Frank. Because even though Frank and him are brothers, he's gonna kill Frank.
Yeah.
Because he's a dweeb. You know, we don't really get. He's just, you know, he's somebody close by you can steer a life force from. So, must have like Frank like nailed some rats to the walls for some reason. You know, I guess just to be weird. You know.
Yeah.
He's bored. He's looking for a new thrill.
Yeah, he's just hanging out in the attic reforming.
He didn't have a podcast to listen to.
Yeah.
She didn't leave a book up there for him.
Yeah, what's this guy supposed to do?
Larry and Julia like are like having sex, but like Frank like waits in the closet with his switchblade, and Julia is begging Frank not to kill Larry, but it like also comes off as like to tell Larry to not have like stop having sex with her. but like Frank comes up behind them and like fillets a rat behind them.
Yeah.
Then Larry stops his foreplay and he leaves angry and confused because he has no idea. Yeah, he didn't know his brother's behind him, like cutting a rat in half. Yeah.
It doesn't have good like situational awareness.
No. Yeah, he's like weirdly a sinister and innocent person throughout this entire movie. It was like he has a weird energy, but he's like the person that deserves the least to die. At least out of all the characters we've seen. So
yeah.
I mean, I guess Kirsty's more innocent, but like even then she's like selling out Frank to like save her own life, which, you know, that's what she has to do. She's dealing with interdimensional sex beings. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, the choices start to get worse and worse.
Yeah. What does she know about fourth dimensional law?
Yeah.
Larry has dinner with Kirsty and tells her of his marriage troubles. We have Julia and Larry argue again, but she doesn't want Larry. Yeah, she doesn't want Larry dead. Or I meant like Julia and Frank argue, and then she doesn't want Larry dead, despite not loving him. But here we see Kirsty sees Julia bring another man to the house. And then she beats him with a hammer, but like he breaks free. But now Frank has enough strength to just like overpower the guy and stick his fingers into his flesh to get the life force out.
Yeah, suck the life out of him through his fingers.
You know, like Winnie the Pooh getting some honey, but yeah.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing. It's life force to Winnie the Pooh.
We have wonderful things to show you. I don't know how to do a Winnie the Pooh voice. Just kind of like woohoos.
Piglet. Piglet, come here. I found a box. There's such joy inside it, Piglet.
I mean, Eeyore's kind of already a Cenobite. So.
Yeah, that's the one.
He's got a detachable tail. He's got a nail in his ass all day.
Yeah, he's halfway there.
Kirsty goes into the house and investigate, and she sees Frank and that like the half dead guy. Frank traps Kirsty and hits her, and then he hits on her, and like I don't know, this is supposed to be like implying like he's gonna rape her or something, but that's the kind of vibe they're going for. It's super creepy. He's saying like "come to daddy," which is super weird.
Yeah, he's gonna do that because, like he said, he has no, this guy's no moral compass when it comes to sex. He had to go to, like I said, he had to find space Germans to satisfy his needs. Or no, what did I call them? Interdimensional sex Germans. Yeah.
Kirsty touches the box like kind of accidentally, and like they have like an effect where like lightning flows up her arm, and then she like throws the box out the window to anger Frank, and then that gives her like room to like run out of there, and then as she's running out, she picks up the box and runs away. She gets away, but then she starts to like feel faint, and then she just actually does faint, and then she wakes up at a hospital. The doctor comes in and tells her she can't leave, but he leaves the puzzle box with her for some reason. It's like, hey, you're holding on to this for dear life.
Oh no, he said, yeah, this might help your memory or help you calm down. Yeah, I think it's the complete opposite, but he doesn't.
So Kirsty solves the puzzle box, and the wall splits open, revealing a long corridor. This is a very cool scene, for what it is. It's like very simply done, but very effective.
Yeah, when the wall starts to glow, like the chinks in where the bricks are, I was like, yeah, that's a pretty cool scene.
Well, and the way they just do the matte painting too to make it look like an infinite corridor is opened up in a hospital wall. That's neat. they can do that stuff all day now with special effects, but then they had to earn it with a lot less money.
They used mirrors, and someone had to paint that.
So she's like going through the hall, the corridor, and then she spots some weird giant baby monster that chases after her. She makes it back to the room, and the wall closes behind her, but she can still hear like the growling behind the wall. And then Kirsty starts messing with the puzzle box again. The walls light up and become translucent, and then the Cenobites appear. And they say that they're explorers of the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. This is Pinhead talking. He's like, I think the lady talks a bit too, but it's usually just Pinhead talking.
Yeah.
She starts crying and like wondering, and then he says like, "No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering."
Yeah, I like that dialogue.
Here, Kirsty, like, they're like, I don't know, she saw the puzzle box and now she owes them something or whatever. And then she's like saying that she sells out Frank, saying that like he got away from them, and like, so they're in disbelief. So they make a bargain with her where like they'll release her from like whatever they're going to do to, to rip her flesh off or whatever. And it's like, yeah, we want Frank again.
Well, yeah, because she tells him, well, he escaped from you. And
yeah.
No one escapes from us. It's like, well, yeah, I got some bad news for you there, Pincushion. And she's perfectly willing to sell Frank out, which is good because he's evil. But
yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying like, again, like it's not a bad thing that she does, that she's selling out, but she is like trading a life for her own. But it's also like the best, worst life she could trade away.
Yeah. It's not like she's like, I'll give you a baby. That would be screwed up.
Or is that baby monster behind the wall? Do you want it? Or is that with you guys? He's with us. Yeah, so I have that being the end of Act 2. Because we now have the second thing. Like, now she has to go get Frank to the Cenobites. Which again, like that even though the Cenobites are easily portrayed as like, oh, well, these are evil people just randomly killing people, it's like, well, here they're actually weirdly going to save her from Frank.
Yeah, they're following rules and stuff. Like, they're not just random. It's like, yeah, they have to do some things to get what they want.
So we have Act 3. We have Julie and Frank argue again because they're scared Kirsty's gonna like tell on them. Like, what if they tell the police, or what if they tell the Cenobites? Larry gets home and you don't see it, but there's like a weird crack sound that Larry makes, and so I'm like, oh, well, I've already seen this before, but somehow I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, Frank stole Larry's skin. So now Frank is Larry.
Yeah.
Kirsty gets home and she confides to Larry. You also see like Larry's like, he's like got blood all over the back of his head. So he's like, that's weird, but Kirsty doesn't seem to notice that. So that's fine. But him and Julia tell her that they killed Frank and his body's upstairs. Julia shows Kirsty the bloody corpse. What the?
Yeah, it's just like a skeleton covered with barbecue sauce. not only is his skin missing, but like his whole it just drained him of everything.
Yeah. I think he locks her in there or something. I wrote something weird that doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, the Cenobites show up. Julia locks her in there. The Cenobites showing up and they like look at the corpse on the ground. And we want the man who did this, and like, so she doesn't know that that's her dad's corpse. So that doesn't make sense to her. And then I think she runs back downstairs, and here Frank does the "come to daddy" line again, while wearing her dad's face. So that's super weird. But now Kirsty knows the twist, and then Kirsty scrapes Frank's face and then definitely knows like, okay, that's just that face is just barely on there. He goes. Frank goes to stab Kirsty and ends up stabbing Julia. But when he's like stabbing Julia, he doesn't like stop committing to the stabbing. It's like, oh well.
Yeah, I just got to follow through. Once I'm committed, no turning back.
And then he also just like steals Julia's life force and says, "Nothing personal, baby."
So now the real villain of the movie's dead.
Yeah. Kirsty hides in the room upstairs as Frank slowly like gives chase. This is a different room. It's like a room just kind of like filled with a bunch of junk. There's a Jesus statue jump scare.
Yeah.
And then there's a
jump scare.
and then there's a maggot corpse jump scare. It's like, man, Kirsty really has her shit together to not scream at these jump scares.
Yeah, she's making deals with demons, and I mean, Kirsty really has like a presence of mind.
Kirsty leaves the room and she's like crying on top of the banister, but then Frank just shows up behind her, and like they end up in the puzzle box room. Light shines in the room and the Cenobites appear, and we have chains and hooks like fill the room. Kirsty backs out of the room. Frank goes after her, but he starts getting grabbed by the hooks, and there's just a ton of hooks and everything go into his face. And it's like pulling his face apart, and then he just like looks in the camera and goes, "Jesus wept." And then he just is explosively torn apart by the hooks.
Well, remember though, before he dies, he's like licking his lips in a suggestive way at Kirsty, like,
"I'm still ready to go."
Yeah.
Then we have Kirsty's being cornered by the Cenobites, but she finds the puzzle box and she undoes it, and this is where Pinhead says, "We have such sights to show you."
Yeah.
But then she makes the puzzle box a square, and the Cenobites are put back in the box one by one. Steve is in the house, it starts to crumble apart, but then like the house falls on one of the Cenobites. Yeah, she's like sucking them into the box, but one of them, the house falls on it. They try to leave, but then the demon baby thing shows up. Like it punches the boyfriend out for a bit, and then like they wrestle with the box. It's kind of yeah, it was like a good effect. To hear it's like they're pushing it too far.
Yeah.
It's
it's slapping this box back and forth. It's now like a corner has become like a triangle. Got to straighten that out.
Well, also just like the puppet, it's like, all right, this is like, now it's just clearly a puppet, and it's just kind of like flailing about like it's like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, it was funny in the tunnel. It was scary. Now it's just kind of weird. Like, wow, the range of motion on this thing sucks. You need to build monsters with hinged joints, because this thing has one move.
Yeah, and if you have all those teeth, why aren't you using them?
Yeah, and it's like a scorpion tail. It's like bringing that into play.
Yeah, she moves one of the pieces around, and they trap that thing in the box too. And then Steve and Kirsty get out of there, and they watch the house burn to the ground, and then they toss the puzzle into the fire. And then the intense homeless man shows up to grab the puzzle box. As he's getting engulfed in fire, he like explodes into some demon skeleton angel dragon thing and flies away.
Yeah.
And then
the most special of special effects.
Yeah, that one looked pretty good. Yeah. Then we cut to like the puzzle box is back in Asia, mirroring the beginning of the movie, but there's a new customer there now. So, and
same guy selling it.
And that is the end of Hellraiser. This is a very short movie, so there's not a whole lot to dig into, like kind of plot wise. But I think this is a very weird and watchable movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, watch it once. It's or twice, but yeah, it's again, it kind of goes into that gross out horror movie stuff. That's not really my thing, but this one is creative enough that I enjoy it. Because even though the evil doesn't, it's like, oh, why are they doing this? It's like, well, you don't know, but they're weird and scary enough. It's like you don't want the main characters to have to deal with them.
Yeah.
I mean, they look freaky.
But I do like that like they aren't necessarily obviously the villains of the movie. They're just the weirdest looking people in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, they represent something bad, but it's like, well, are they doing something bad, or is they just their natural state? Um,
Yeah, I mean they're only doing stuff to people that touch the box, so it's like sort of a contract to them. Like they aren't harming civilians with their weird sex crimes.
yeah. So in that
Um,
way, it's fun.
yes, I read The Hellbound Heart, which is what this is based on. It's a short story. It's like I said, it's pretty close to the movie. And I can't remember what it is. I don't think it's like I don't think Kirsty's like the daughter. I think it's like a friend from work. I think it's like Julia's friends from work. That's like the Kirsty role. Um, I don't know. I could have just like misheard that. I was kind of preoccupied while trying to listen
No,
to
it
it.
says right here in the synopsis she's not the daughter.
Oh, okay.
Well, so yeah, she was like one of her friends or something.
um, yeah. Then the puzzle box called like the Lamage, like configuration. But here they don't mention that, and again, I don't think they mention the limit configuration in this movie, but that becomes a thing later on.
Yeah.
Um, I did a scrub watch of Hellraiser 2, the Hellbound Heart, because like they're all on Amazon Prime right now. Oh no, it's just called Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. It's kind of interesting. It's Kirsty in an insane asylum, which is like that's what you do with an '80s horror movie, of course.
Yep.
And this is like a year later. Like they just pumped this out real quickly, pretty quickly. But the fun thing
Yeah, they
is
just
like
wrapped filming and started making
but like Julia gets to be the Frank in this movie. Like she's like brought back to life by some old lover or something like that, and then she's going around killing people to like gain her life force back. And then they bring Frank back too, but this time Frank or Julia rips her heart out or rips his heart out, and like he's like it says like it's like sorry babe or whatever like he said to her in the first one. But then she is just kind of like unceremoniously killed. Because she is like a fun character. She really does a good job with the Julia character where it's like she can't control herself, but she's having fun with it in a way.
Yeah.
And then there's the weird twist here where it's like Julia shows up again, and I forget there's like some girl they're trying to save from hell or whatever, and she shows up again, like saves her from like falling off a cliff, and then she's like scared of her, and then it's revealed that it's Kirsty like wearing Julia's skin. But it was just Julia, like Kirsty's not bad. She was just like trying to get it. I can't even remember why she did it. It was just like a weird, but hey, again, it was a scrub watch, so I didn't get a whole lot of the details, like pertinent details, but that's also where they reveal that the Cenobites used to be humans, and then like doing this like made them into these weird monsters. Although one of them is weird, like the teeth chattering guy is revealed to be just like a kid, like some like 12-year-old kid. And it's like, well, that's extra weird now.
Oh yeah, that's a little dark.
And then I watched the Hellraiser remake, which is on Hulu, which is a completely different remake.
Okay.
They don't follow they don't follow anything from this movie. That the main character is like a drug addict, and then there's like a rich guy who's like kind of like feeding people to the lament configuration cube because he's like basically like trying to get souls to them to make a contract with the Cenobites. And so like when the people like solve the puzzle box, they just end up dying or whatever. Although again, like I don't think that's they have the people like ripped asunder and clearly dying, but like they need to illustrate that that's not exactly what's happening. It's like some weird fourth dimensional existence that's like not understandable. It's not necessarily like, well, they're dead now because it's a horror movie.
Huh.
I don't know that I feel like they need to get that across better. Yeah, so he's like feeding people to it, like they ends up trying to like feed the drug addict character to it, but then she's able to make a deal with the Cenobites to basically in exchange for souls, where actually she's able to exchange a Cenobite soul and then some guy who betrays her, and then they're able to get out of there. The guy, the real rich guy, like he got enough souls of them, so then he got his promise. He wanted like to experience new pleasures, and he just has like these weird machines on him that like it like twists up all his nerves in his body, so he's in constant pain.
Oh boy.
So now he's trying to get away from that, and then they have like a weird scene at the end where like he gets sold away to some, like they call it Leviathan, which is some weird, so he's basically like on some weird like Egyptian crucifixion thing, and then he's like turned into a Cenobite as like, you know, flesh is ripped apart on him in weird ways and stuff like that. But it's not as good as this movie, but it is interesting. It's like, you know, it's a, you know, cool looking movie, and you know, all that stuff is done well, and some of the character stuff, you know, is done well. So it's not bad. It's just like here the Cenobites are just basically like killing people. It's not really the contract thing. It's somewhat the contract thing, but it's not they just seem to be killing people at random. It's not necessarily about the thing that like people entered into the contract. It's like, well, you touched the cube, so you die now.
Huh.
Which is just more of a standard horror movie, which is
right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's on Hulu, so if you got Hulu, it's out there.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna check that out.
And again, there was tons of sequels, but like they aren't really, you know. Yeah, like I remember liking the space one, but there's some of them that are just really poorly done and very cheaply done too.
Right.
And they're just there for people to go like, oh, the new Hellraiser, and then you rent it off at Blockbuster. So, but anyways, yeah, that is Hellraiser, an iconic horror movie that I don't think people. I feel like people don't really know what Hellraiser is, but they do assume they do.
Yeah, you've got to watch it, because again, they're the reason to watch this movie is just the weirdness of them, and the fact that they've been around for like, you know, close to 40 years. It's
yeah,
like, oh, that's weird. Been around a lot.
Did you ever see Rawhead Rex? That was another Clive Barker turned movie, and
I think I watched the guy. Oh, who'd they talk about? The guy's on.
I remember Red Letter Media did a thing.
Yeah, that was it. Red Letter Media.
But I remember like I watching their thing. They said it was just like on like basic cable all the time. So it's like I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, as they tell it, it seemed like it was pretty tamed up for a Clive Barker movie. But there is just some weird like mountain jizz shot in the movie that just comes out of nowhere. Where it's like you tamed everything down from the story to the movie except for that.
Yeah, just that.
And then again, like, yeah, I think Nightbreed's a real interesting movie. That's another movie where it's like they're trying to get across the idea that, like, you know, the freaks aren't, you know, if you look like a freak, you're not necessarily a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of yeah, it's like they're doing their thing. It's like you're just engaging in evil.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess he wrote or he had the Candyman's based on one of his stories.
Okay, that makes sense.
And apparently there's a Nightbreed TV series in production. Oh, wait, no, it just announced. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I hear he has like I hear Clive Barker like short stories and books are incredibly well done. I've just never got into them. But have you ever read much Clive Barker?
No, I actually haven't.
Huh.
I might after this. I don't know. He seems like an interesting guy.
Oh yeah. I forget there's some story. It's like a demon. I forget how it's written. Someone was describing it as like it's like a demon like haunting book written in like the second person. So it's like you're reading the book as if you were the demon like in the book or something like that. It's like, oh, that sounds interesting.
Right. Yeah.
I remember Clive Barker had like a video game for a hot minute. It's
Oh, he
called
did?
Yeah, it was called like Jericho, and it was not well received.
Oh, okay.
So that was then he exited video games. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know what Clive Barker does now. I don't even know if he's still writing or if he just like chills. Believe he's still alive, but
Oh yeah, he's still around. He had a very it's kind of an unusual life. But yeah, he's around. This is probably what he's most famous for.
oh so. Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, Nightbreed wasn't kicking down doors. They didn't make a Nightbreed 2, but they are making a TV series now, so yeah.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like it's an interesting concept, but it's like, yeah, you got so many X amount of dollars to get all this stuff across, and it's like, oh, okay, this is where it falls apart.
But I feel like he kind of like almost exited films too early because I figured he kind of shared that same space as like, like Wes Craven and like John Carpenter or David Cronenberg.
Yeah,
especially with like that body horror stuff.
Oh yeah, it's like I said, this movie's pretty gross but it's not just that. See, that's what's cool about it.
Yeah. It's not gross for gross sake. It's like all the grosses symbolizes something. Like this is human greed and immorality.
Yeah. Yeah, remember, you're the evil fuel that these things feed off of. They weren't just created out of thin air. There is an exchange of energy there. Yeah, it's an interesting way of imagining hell and suffering and torment. It's like it's a very earthy way of imagining it.
But. I mean, like the books or the stories called Hellbound Heart, and then this is called Hellraiser, but it's not really about hell and demons and going to hell. It's about like getting what you want, but in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
It's the monkey paw wish thing where it's like, this is what I want. It's like, all right, here it is. It's like, well, wasn't what I was thinking of, but yeah, but this is what it is distilled down to its pure essence.
It's like that Twilight Zone episode where the guy gets the wishes and they're all bad.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be the leader of a small country, a small wealthy country, like a dictator. Then he's Hitler. End in the bunker. It's like, oh, wait a minute. This is, I forget. There's a lot of other things, stories like that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Or any genie story. That's always kind of like the backfire wish where it's like you didn't make it specific enough, so it didn't work.
Yeah. I want all the money in the world. It's like, okay. And then you have it all in giant piles, but it's not worth anything. You have it all. No one else can use it.
Now I'm just imagining like some courtroom drama where like someone's dealing with like a genie where they have to like, no, we got to lock down what this wish is and all the consequences.
Contract wishes. Got a team of AIs writing the contract. What's that other one that what was the guy's name? The guy from Donnie Darko. Was it called The Box?
Yeah.
That was another one where it's like, you can have this, but it specifically states like you can have, what's in this box, money or whatever, but somebody dies. And
oh, was it somebody I thought it was just a random person.
Oh, I thought it was, I don't know. I haven't watched that movie in years, but I did like the thing they did. I don't know if it was on Saturday Night Live or it was a Funny or Die thing where it's like they were shooting it. It was all creepy. It's like, you can have $100,000, but somebody died, and the guy presses the button immediately. He doesn't even listen to it. And he presses it like 3 or 4 more times. It's like, do I have $400,000 now? He's like, no. He's trying to explain the implications of what you're doing is wrong. He's like, but I get $100,000. Like, there's no like reflection.
The essence of capitalism distilled down to its pure essence. Yeah.
Richard Kelly, that was that one.
But yeah, I do think that's a cool puzzle box.
Yeah, I wish it was as elaborate as they said. I don't want it to do the things it did, but Wish it was an elaborate puzzle box.
Yeah, like the one I found on Amazon. The thing I thought was lame about it is it does the thing where it flips from like a star to a square, but it's just literally two pieces that come apart. Like it's not like a hinge or anything like that. It's like that's lame.
It's not moving of its own accord.
No. I've seen those weird like actual puzzle boxes where it's like elaborate things where it's like at 12:30 a.m. on a Sunday you have to like give it a 9-volt charge on one of the sides, and then like it opens like one part of the box, and it's like that stuff is like super neat and weird.
Yeah, it costs like $10,000 too. Yeah, because you do something to it and you move it, and then a magnet comes out like on a stick, and then you got to figure out where to put the magnet, and then something else opens. And yeah, I've seen, and it's like as big as a computer. Some of them, they're huge.
Yeah,
because they have all these different motions and stuff inside them. That's when I went down my lockpicking lawyer rabbit hole and all that. You start ending up finding those videos, like, because people pay all kinds of money for those because it takes a guy a long time to build them. And
yeah, like the almost like Rube Goldberg ones where it's like you have to do this to unlock this to unlock this. And then he finds a shortcut that ruins the whole fun of it.
Well, I think the one guy that does it, does the expensive ones, he's like a magician. Like that's how he makes his living. So he understands like how this deception and trickery works, and subtle mechanical things that go on. And so yeah, he figures them out pretty quick. But he also says like this is shot in time lapse too. This 15-minute video took like 45 hours to figure this out. Don't think I'm doing this in 12 minutes.
Well, if you like what you heard, and how couldn't you? You can find us at anchor.fm/Verhoeven Effect or go to verhoeveneffect.com. We'll take you to the same spot. You can rate our podcast whatever you want, but the algorithm only listens to the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support there at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support us at monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. And you can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook, Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both that and this show live and unedited. And we also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.